time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. I had something that just grabbed me today, and it's been on my mind all day long. It's been one of these things that I've gotten to this point where it's amazing how cruel people have become to each other. It's amazing to me how people who are friends are cruel to each other, and where this came out of, somebody I've known for a very, very long time, someone I called a friend for a very, very long time, is not doing well, and we had a falling out, and it doesn't mean that I don't want this person to be okay and to do well and to thrive and all of this. So when he had this, I think he had a stroke and a couple other things that have gone really, really badly for him. And his girlfriend called for advice and help. I was ready to be there and to help and do whatever I could do, because that's the decent thing to do. It's how I was raised. It's the idea of helping others. You could even make the argument, I grew up in the Catholic Church. It was part of that era's Christian teachings. It was just one of those, I just liken it to being a decent person. And as we were talking, as I was talking to his girlfriend, and she was sharing with me some of the things that have happened, and some of the advice that I had given her that was helpful and useful to her, which I'm grateful for. We started talking about some things around how people have been treating this person, and someone that he has been friends with for a very, very long time, evidently left a campaign button in his room of the person that he ran against a couple of times and lost badly, because it's heavily, I mean, like 75-25 Republican district, and he ran as a Democrat. He took a couple of really big public beatings. And to leave that there, kind of set him back, set his progress back. He evidently not communicative now, and because when you have a stroke, I guess the way it's been explained to me is you almost revert to being a child. So it's almost like that a child turning inward, which isn't healthy. And it got me thinking today. What kind of person does that? How cruel do you have to be to say you're someone's friend and then to do something like that? I mean, even if you're not friends, and look, we had a falling out. I would never have considered something like that ever in my days. And it got me thinking, because his girlfriend and I were reminiscing about the campaign and about good times of the past. And it got me focused on 2016. And I'm going to point to that being a period where the country really made a hard turn. I'm not going to say hard right turn, but a mean right turn. A mean turn towards, just anger and being punitive and I guess, putting on the hat. Got the red hat, the blue hat, and we're gonna be, where politics and life became, well, life and death sport kind of thing. And I'm in this place where I was remembering to her the day of election day of 2016. And I know exactly where I was that day because, I don't talk about trauma very often, but for me, very traumatic day. I don't need therapy or anything like this. I took it in stride, but I spent the entire day opening polls to an hour before closing polls, handing out literature, trying to get people to vote for this person. And look, he's a good guy, a good person. Served his community, loves his community, good union guy, someone who cares about others. So a lot of good things to say to people standing in line. And 2016, as everyone knows, it was a heavy voter turnout year. So as people were coming through, and I've done this over the years, where you stand at the polling place, you hand out literature because you're making that last pitch. Now understand, and I know this as well as anyone, because I've never been able to do it. I've tried. I've given it the old attaboy college try. I've never changed anybody's mind in line. I've never handed them a piece of literature and they go, "Oh, I didn't know. Well, thank you for this. I am so happy you provide this. This document changed my mind." That's never happened. But for my friend, I was willing to take the abuse. And now look, in years past, it was always kind of a jovial kind of jousting. Everyone knows you're that, especially in a heavily Republican district. And I'm sure it would be the same in a heavily Democratic district if you were on the other side. But there was always a healthy kind of jostling, kind of, throwing barbs back and forth at each other. A kind of a positive, I'm trying to say what I'm not going to say because terrestrial radio rules. But we were busting each other's shoes. We used to bust each other's shoes a little bit. And that ended in 2016. And it ended in a very, very harsh way. And I was telling her the story of a guy a little bit bigger than me. Well, actually, it was a lot bigger than me. And he saw me coming, and he said, "Not a word. You don't say a word to me or I'll beat your..." And I kind of just stepped back. Because he saw me kind of joking around when people are trying. And I just said, "Boo." And he looked at me, didn't know what he was going to do. And I said, "Well, that's a word." I go, is this what we're doing now? Is this who we've become? Is this what politics is for you? And I again attempted to engage with him because I'm stupid that way. And I've never been afraid of a beating. But he was having none of it, and they just walked away, which, okay. Fortunately, I didn't get a beating. But it was that moment, and this is what I was telling her. I go, it was that moment that I realized this country changed in ways that I don't think are good. When you can't talk about your differences, when you can't have conversations, when you can't, bust each other's shoes a little bit, when you can't take a freaking joke every once in a while, we got problems. And really big problems. And this button, this is what set me off today. This button wasn't about joking. This button wasn't about, being jovial or, a good-natured, busting of the shoes. This was mean-spirited. This was cruel. And it's angering to me because this isn't the country that I think we should be. We should be much better than this. And what's come out of our politics, and this is the scary part for me. Because while this person and I are not friends anymore, I don't wish him ill or harm or pain or anything. I want them to be healthy and happy and move forward. We're not that country. And this is that kind of moment for me where I sat and I was thinking about this in big ways, going, how do we get back to being able to at least talk, at least have a conversation and not this is my poll, that's your poll, and the only thing we're going to do is beat each other with them. Because where we're going, and this is where I come back to all the time, is very predictable. The wealth class of this country has figured out how to slice and dice us into very, very predictable groups. You're in the red team or the blue team, or you're in the middle somewhere and well, nobody knows where you're going. But there aren't as many of those anymore. How do we undo the damage that the Trump years brought us? How do we undo that? Because look, here's the reality. Trump broke a lot of laws. Trump will be found guilty of some things. I don't think he's ever going to spend a day in jail. But as someone reminded me today, the crimes of the Bush administration are so much worse. Nobody's talking about trying that. You know, I have a friend who sat in Congress who said, look, I would love to tell you all the things that we were shown. I would love to tell you all the things that happened, but it's sealed under, you know, me going to jail again. The Trump era brought us this kind of pushing to the limits. Trump would have never been tried for the documents had he given them back. He'd had them. He said, okay, oops, sorry, give them back. Probably wouldn't have been tried for the insurrection had he not doubled and quadrupled down. Had he just let it go, probably wouldn't have, because this is a monumental moment. And my mind went into this place again today and I don't know what it is about that damn button that is stuck in my head. The cruelty is the point. And the more that we're willing to participate and eat each other, again, the more the wealthy of this country walk away with untold profits and wealth. The more divided we are, the more we're just screwing ourselves. So it's interesting to me. And what the other part of it is under the guise of some religious zealotry. That's the other scary component of this. But I want to hear your thoughts. Am I reading too much into this? Is this button just irked me too much? I got to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The new CHIPS bill that got passed will bring jobs back home and has already resulted in big announcements of major new factories opening. The American Recovery Package has allowed cities and counties to hire new police officers and firefighters and start rebuilding their communities again. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice.
It doesn't matter what kind of weather. It doesn't matter what time of day or night. When Mother Nature's done her worst, the only thing that matters to us is keeping the lights on for you. The hardworking women and men of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, dedicated to keeping the power on in communities all across the country. Because when bad weather strikes, we know what matters most. IBEW, the power professionals.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
So Congressman Michael Cloud, a Republican of Texas, evidently told a gathering of Christians that they have been called. They have been called by God himself to establish Christ's kingdom and government right here on earth. That's their job. And here's the weird thing. He gave his little spiel about, hey, everyone raise your hand because you're in the government. And his spiel had a bit of reality for me in it, because I do believe every person, Christian, non-Christian, every person, part of the government. That's what an active, engaged citizenry is supposed to be. It's the founding idea. It's kind of the point. And when I hear the good Christian folk like Representative Cloud, when I hear him talk about this, you know, making Christ's kingdom right here, being part of, God's government. My mind immediately goes to the Sermon on the Mount. I don't know why. That whole spiel about, the meek shall inherit the earth, that whole thing about the poor and the downtrodden and all of that. My mind goes there. And when you have people like Congressman Cloud and other Republicans who have stood in the way of all of the social programs and all of the things that help feed people and house people and clothe people, the downtrodden, the poor. When I see them kicking those folks, I kind of go, I'm not getting it. I hear the words coming out of your mouth, but I don't see the actions coming out of your body. There's a disconnect. Seems kind of mean to me, which is why today, when there was a letter sent by 25 Democratic lawmakers to Kevin McCarthy saying, hey, how about you not slash the SNAP program? How about you don't cut the nation's most important anti-poverty food program? How about we don't do that? And evidently, if Republicans don't get their pound of flesh, hungry children, evidently the farm bill might be in jeopardy, is what's being said. And this is, again, one of these things where, we're just expanding work requirements. Do you think Jesus would have said, hey, I'm not going to cure the lepers because they're not going to work anyway. I'm not going to feed the hungry because, they're just lazy. I don't think that's how it worked. But this is who they are in action. And again, as I say, Republicans hate working people. Look at what they do, especially poor working people. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are you?
Totally insane. How about you?
I'm a little disappointed today, a little down.
Yeah, I heard. Well, what I wanted to say was this. Trump gave the Republican Party and their base and the evangelicals the courage to come out and show they're ugly.
Yeah.
He did. And, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle once you've set it free. And, they're already living in an alternative universe out there. Like last week you were talking about that, The Sound of Freedom, that movie. Well, I researched this, and that movie it was loosely based on events. In the original thing, the guy originally was just tracking down a brother and sister, but they took as the one of the where they one of the reviews said literary license.
Yeah.
They took literary license and creative license.
Theatric liberties.
What they did was they took and they made it a right-wing wish, is what they did. And it's very hard to deal with that. And, they do it to everything.
Yeah.
Look what they did to their religion. All of a sudden it's like, we believe in Jesus, even though we don't follow nothing that's in that big book which we keep trying to shove down your throat. Like I said to the neighbor the other day, look, do you really think when you die that God or Jesus is going to sit there and ask you how come you didn't stop the gay person or the person having the abortion? No, they're going to ask you about you, what you did or did not do. But you have a good evening, Rick.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. No, at the end of it, look, I want to live in that world that Representative Cloud talks about, where citizens care about each other, whether we create a government of active, engaged citizens. I do, who believe in the ideals of community and caring and all of that stuff. Kind of, I think that'd be great. Probably never going to happen, as long as you've got greed and all of that in the way. But hey, we can try. I got an email I got to get to. Bernard from Wisconsin sent me an email, and I've been chewing on this one for a couple of days. He said, I heard you talk about Medicare Advantage plans. Now understand, I think Bernard actually works for an insurer that does these plans, because there's a lot in here that seems a little drippy, a little too praising. But he writes, I heard you talk about Medicare Advantage plans recently and the fact that privatization of Medicare will be a horrible thing. I agree with that. Are you afraid of competition? There is a reason Medicare Advantage is now being sought after by the majority, and that is because Medicare has outlived its usefulness. People understand that Medicare is the real waste, not the Advantage plans that pay for prescription drug coverage, dental, vision, and hearing. They offer coordinated care, transportation to doctors' offices, and even grab bars for people's home bathrooms. Medicare does none of that. Bet you won't respond or use this on air. Well, Bernard, bet I will. I did respond, and I will use this on air because these are talking points. These are the Advantage people's talking points. And first and foremost, let's start with the fact that it's now reached a breaking point of more than half of the people on Medicare or using Medicare money are using a privatized version. And the reason for that, for me, is very simple. Have you seen the advertising blitz that has gone on over the last couple of years? Have you seen the amount of your tax dollars that are going into television, into radio, into print, into every type of social media to get people to go, hey, gym memberships. Hey, because you forgot that, Bernard, gym memberships. They give those too. Tennis shoes and sunglasses to go for your gym membership. All kinds of stuff. There are lots of sweeteners and lots of shiny things. And the question that I got to ask is, and that's secondly, how do you think that they can do all of these things that you laid out and Medicare can't? Why is it that these privatized plans can do the things that Medicare cannot? Because if you remember, there was a big fight over getting hearing, dental, and vision just not too long ago. You may remember it. Democrats were pushing really hard to get that into Medicare. And who fought that, Bernard? Oh, yeah, the Republicans. Tooth and nail. Now you go, it's because, well, they're in the pockets of the insurers. And that's probably true. But it's their ideology to destroy what is public and make it private. And Bernard, as I wrote you, please tell me one thing that privatization has made better. Tell me one thing. Did it make Chicago's parking authority better, or Harrisburg or Pittsburgh or any of the parking authorities across this country that have been privatized and privatized? Has it made that better or cheaper? No. How about the turnpikes that were sold off? How about our for-profit prisons? How about name just about water, sewer authorities? How about just about anything that we, the people, used to do for ourselves? How about anything that we used to do that we said, no, corporations can do it better, more efficient, cheaper, be a better service. Just show me one thing that has led up and turned into what we were sold. Because we were sold, corporations were going to be much more efficient. We were going to get a better product at a cheaper price because of this wonderful magic of competition. And I've been asking this, and Bernard, this is not fair to you, because I've been asking this question for 18 years now, and no one has come up with a reasonable response. It's just what we believe. And well, what you believe is we're getting screwed at every opportunity. And the frustrating part in this is, what's angering to me is what we used to do for ourselves, we've now got to put a profit motive in front of, where we've got to have corporate America who's well-fed and well-profitized. And even when we do try and claw back some, for instance, Medicare cannot negotiate for prescription drugs. Thank you, George W. Bush. Thank you, Republicans. So now you got Joe Biden going, hey, maybe on a couple of these drugs we should do this. And what happens? Well, all of Big Pharma, Bristol Myers Squibb, all of them, the Chamber of Commerce, all of them, Merck, all of them now are suing the government because their First and Fifth Amendment rights are being violated, they say. What actually it is, it's the $25 billion that Medicare might save that they're really suing for. It's not their free speech or their right against self-incrimination. It had nothing to do with that. It's about the money. And anytime you hear privatization, anytime you go, hey, there's this shiny thing over here be very, very afraid, because they come back to, how do they do all those wonderful things on the same dollar that Medicare uses? How do they do that? They do it by denying you care. Maybe look into that, Bernard. Thanks for the email. You got a question, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Right back.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads. But I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing, because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. And the Teamsters pushed a lot so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind, the union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case, and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right, left, or red, blue, when they are and always have been up, down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.